So, okay, so quick summary for last week. We covered Chapter 4, Eddard. Robert Baratheon and Ned Stark go down to the crypt so that Robert can pay his respects to Lyanna Stark, Ned's sister, who Robert was formerly betrothed to. She was kidnapped and murdered, that's using some air quotes there, by Rhaegar Targaryen many years ago. Robert then asks Ned to become Hand of the King, which is the last thing Ned wants.
Yeah, there was, I mean, that's another one of those chapters where it's like we got to know more about Robert and, Ned's relationship and the position of Hand of the King. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? What is that? What does it actually mean? Why is it such a bad thing? It's the most second powerful, position. So the character's already kind of, showing us that this is a position that's dangerous for a Stark and things like that. So, a little foreshadowing just in the fact that Ned doesn't actually want to take it. I mean, it means he has to leave the North. And in that chapter, you and I covered how, his father and brother went south. And it's just going south is not a good thing.
Yeah.
For the Starks. So
nope. Yeah, it doesn't appear to be. So
yeah. So this week our summary for chapter 5, Jon, it's the 4th hour of the welcoming feast laid for the king. So we're having this welcoming feast for Robert Baratheon and his family that have come north. Jon is having a few drinks, listening to stories, and making observations about the king and his family. After several cups of summer wine, Jon is met by his uncle, Benjen Stark. Jon is eager to join the Night's Watch, but Uncle Benjen knows what a hard life it will be. Jon gets emotional during the conversation, in large part due to the wine, and he heads outside for some fresh air, where he meets Tyrion Lannister. Yeah. And, I mean, so there's your summary. We're going to dive into some of the details. We've broken this chapter into 3 different parts, just introductions, basically, for some of the family, Jon's insights, and then Tyrion Lannister, actually. So,
yeah. So, the first part, man, I have it. So this chapter it's kind of short, but there's a lot you just kind of pull out specific lines. It doesn't really say a lot about this chapter, but a lot going forward and things like that. I mean, first line of the chapter is, there were times, not many, but a few, when Jon Snow was glad he was a bastard.
Yeah. That's actually the theme, and it kind of sets the whole tone of this chapter. What are the benefits and the negatives to being a bastard? Master Lewin later on will say something about, how the fact that he's a bastard, he has to grow up much faster.
Yep. Yeah, he has to grow up faster. And then I might just go ahead and
jump wherever you want.
I'm going to go ahead and pull out actually my my quote of the week, which is talking about Ghost. He's not like the others, Jon said. He never makes a sound. That's why I named him Ghost. That and because he's white. The others are all dark, gray, or black. And so even we see right from the different, Jon is different because he's a bastard than his family. In the first chapter, we see him say, I'm not your true-born son. These direwolves are for you. Then he gets his own direwolf, which is different. And then here, even Jon's direwolf, Ghost, we see a little bit more. He's not like the others. He's different. It's good to be a bastard sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's kind of Jon Snow's, his whole story.
Yeah, it is. And that kind of fits in with the, this. I'm going to kind of change. Yeah. I had 2 things that stuck out to me, which was Master Lewin saying, bastards grow up much faster than other children. And so that fits right into what you're talking about. And, we see that with him getting in, just where he sits in relationship to his half-siblings and just the things that he learns. And he gets to drink more wine where they get 1 cup. But something that I pulled out this week was the mention of eyes over and over, the eye color. And, you learn that Cersei has green eyes, Jaime has green eyes, all of their children have green eyes. You learn...
Tyrion doesn't.
Yeah, Tyrion's got 1 green and 1 black. You learn, there's like blue-gray eyes, hidden eyes. They talk about Jon when he's looking at his father and what he was hiding behind his eyes.
And the Ghost has red eyes.
Red eyes.
Too. Yeah, like the other direwolves.
That's right, yep. So, just the mention of... physical characteristics.
Yeah, that's a big part of this chapter.
Yeah, and it's been a big part of other chapters too, but it continues here, and it continues in every chapter where we are introduced to new people. And again, we've said that you've probably seen the show, you've probably read the series. This is a reread, and you'll know that that's really important later on. That it seems like it's just an author explaining who a character might be and what they look like, but it's super important.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
well, we definitely know that later when Ned Stark is looking at the characteristics of Joffrey compared to Robert Baratheon.
Yeah, and his bastards. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have some other kind of notes here in this first third. Going off what you said, he's talking about, John's just kind of describing the scene. He talks about the direwolf Stark, Baratheon's crown stag, and the Lion of Lannister. We can get to this later. It's just a small little thing here. A singer playing the high harp and reciting a ballad, but down to the end of the hall, his voice could be heard scarcely over the roar of the fire.
Who is that?
Who is it? Later,
might as well talk about it.
Yeah, later it's potentially believed that it could be Mance Rayder.
Yeah.
Does Mance Rayder say it's him? Later,
he does say that he was there.
Yeah, he does say he was there.
Yeah, I don't know that he said.
That's
I don't know whether he said he was playing. I think he did. He actually did. He was one of the singers or
bards. Yeah,
bards. Yeah,
yeah. So anyway, I just kind of thought that was interesting where they're talking about you have the direwolf of Stark and the Baratheons thing, but then you also have the Lion of Lannister there.
Yeah,
and I think that's very important. This idea of the Lannisters have, it shouldn't just be the House Baratheon. But I guess, yeah.
I think the only reason that Lannister, because that would have been more suspicious if Tyrion hadn't have come.
Yeah,
I think it's literally that's how they get away with it's Lord Tyrion is here, because he is. I mean, because Jaime is a part of the Kingsguard.
We'll get to that.
Yeah,
yeah.
But one more thing on that singer, when later on when Jon goes out and he looks at the surroundings, people, basically the lone sentry who's standing watch, just one. So super easy for someone to have snuck in. Although Mance says that he actually went much further south and got in with Robert's company and then was able to make his way in there. But I just kind of thought if anybody wanted to sneak in, or wanted to show up, that would be the time to kind of do it. So
yeah. So kind of going back off what you said here, there's a line here. Jon was certain that his companions were more entertaining than the king's offspring. So I think it's just specifically the king's offspring. So just this idea, it's the king's children. So then it goes and it talks about kind of going off the last chapter. When they're all walking in, Jon kind of looks at them and he kind of describes them, I guess, like in his head or whatever.
Yeah.
The king was a great disappointment to Jon.
Yeah. We
kind of get that in the last chapter where we hear Ned kind of talking about him as he used to be this really strong, powerful man, and now he's kind of fat and he's got like a big beard and he was like out of breath just from walking down the steps. And,
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's sweating through his silks and things, so not attractive and stuff. But the stories, it's life, it's what life and it's what the kingship has done to him, down there. And so it's not where he thrives. I think he almost wishes that wouldn't have been his life.
Yeah.
And I think he's just drowning himself in, wine and different pleasures to kind of forget where he's at. He's surrounded by Lannisters and he doesn't like that. So
yeah.
I thought that is interesting. And when you think about it, I think he would have rather been a lord out just fighting
in tournaments.
doing all that sort of stuff, but yet he's king,
Yeah.
And it's almost like this is not,
yeah,
not cool.
Yeah. Going on here, so everyone's walking in, and Jon is just kind of describing them. I thought this one was kind of interesting. Jon noticed the shy looks she gave Robb, talking about Princess Marcella as he was on his arm, as they passed between the tables and the timid way she smiled at him. He decided she was insipid. Robb didn't even have the sense to realize how stupid he was. He was grinning like a fool.
There's something there.
I think that line is super important because it kind of describes Robb's character.
Yeah.
There was another line.
Marcella's pretty.
She is really pretty.
She's really pretty, and so, even though she's younger and things like that. You know, it's just it's the idea that he's probably seen pretty girls who were of lower birth or whatever, but this is like a highborn girl looking at him and, you know, being kind of flirtatious. It's this moment that he probably hasn't experienced anything like this in his life, and it does play to his character later on. It's like the idea that he's just, oh, this is awesome, you know, like just passionate and like, you know, kind of impulsive, you know what I mean? So
yeah, and that's described. There was a line a couple weeks ago that we had that was something similar. I should have pulled it up, but where they're talking about Rob as well, and it's the same kind of a thing. I think it's when they were talking about the direwolves. I think it was the Catelyn chapter where she walks in and Ned's at the thing, and he's asking about the children and what they're all saying, and like, he's, you know, I think like something else, like where they kind of give this idea that Rob is not like, I don't know, he's kind of in his own world.
Yeah,
you know. So, thought about that. But then he notices Jaime and Tyrion walk in. And when Jaime walks in, it says, Jon found it hard to look away from him. This is what a king should look like. He thought to himself as he had passed. They called him the Lion of Lannister to his face and whispered Kingslayer behind his back. Yeah. And that is actually our vocab for the week.
Yeah.
We could jump into that now,
yeah,
or we could wait.
That's fine. Yeah, I think it's
okay.
Keep them connected.
Yeah, so keep them connected. So vocab for this week is Kingslayer. So this is kind of what happens during the sack of King's Landing. So I have the full wiki thing pulled up here. When a rebel army led by Lord Eddard Stark raced towards King's Landing after Rhaegar's death at the Trident, Lord Tywin Lannister appeared at the gates of the capital with 12,000 men. His main concern was that King Aerys Targaryen II would be capable of killing Jaime out of spite, as well as Jaime himself could do something rash. Lord Varys, this is where Lord Varys he counsels King Aerys to open the gates.
Yeah, saying
that, hey, this is, you know, let him in. He's our friend. He's our ally.
Right.
And so it happens. So Varys,
and that's a whole other topic. Is to whether
excuse me. Varys counseled him against opening the gates. Excuse me.
I was gonna say, all right.
Yeah, and Pycelle's the one who says
yes.
Yeah, let him in.
Yeah, because I was gonna say there's this whole bit where that didn't make sense to me, and so I was starting to think like
I know it started making that make sense to me. So I was like, oh yeah, sorry, my notes.
No, you're fine though. Yeah. So it's the alliances, you know, what's going on, what's happening, you know. So because at times I think Varys is a friend of the realm and wants to do what's best. And is it best to have the Mad King on the throne? I bet he struggled with that. Yeah, you know. So
yeah, he did. So Jaime, then we see, says, as the sole King's Guard remaining in King's Landing, the defense of the Red Keep became Jaime's sole responsibility. Knowing that he did not stand a chance to defend the castle, he sent a messenger to the king asking him to leave or to make terms with the attackers. Yeah. A messenger came back that Aerys' orders said that Jaime should kill his father and bring his head to Aerys Targaryen, the Mad King. Yep. The messenger also informed Jaime that Rosart, who is one of the creators of Wildfire, I had to look him up, was with the king, and Jaime believed that Aerys was about to command the destruction of the city. So Jaime kills Rosart, who was dressed as a common soldier, and hurried to this thing. He went into the throne room and stabs King Aerys in the back.
Yeah, he does. And I think we'll get this in a couple books, I think, or next book, maybe two. No, it is next book. Yeah. And it's this idea that what Jaime did there was save millions of people. Yeah. And that's something, it's just crazy that why doesn't he, I think the reason he doesn't go out and tell people this story is because who's going to believe him? I mean, they're just going to turn around on him. So he was
also what, like 17 at the time or something? Yeah. He was a younger guy. And then
he's seen though the Mad King do what he did to the Starks. He's not going to let that happen to his father. No. And at all. So immediately, you know, like these guys take oaths, and that's something Gerd does really well. Is like they have these oaths, right, that they take, and they're all breaking them. You know, you're supposed to forsake family and blood and all this. No. Yeah. It's stronger, and I think that's sort of the idea, is that is what ties people together. Yeah. You know, these long-standing relationships and stuff. So,
yeah, and after that, the article goes on a little bit more to talk about just what happened. So Jaime's sitting on the Iron Throne, and Ned Stark rides in, and Jaime's just kind of hanging on the throne. He says that the seat's uncomfortable, and he doesn't want it, and then Ned Stark says, we're going to give it to Robert Baratheon.
Yeah.
And Jaime afterwards hunted down the other 2 Pyromancers and killed them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and he's known as Kingslayer all throughout the thing, and Ned wanted Eddard urged Robert to strip Jaime of the white cloak, and arguing that he should at least be made to join the Night's Watch. Robert listens to Jon Arryn instead and pardons him and lets him become a Kingsguard.
Yeah, and here's the thing. So, I've read that before, and if Ned believed that, then why doesn't he believe that necessarily with... I mean, I get that Barristan Selmy and all those guys were loyal to the king, right? And so he's just saying since he was disloyal and killed the king, you can't trust him. He's got a good point, but at the same time, it's sort of... You get into what Joffrey does later on with Barristan Selmy, and I don't know, it's just never... I don't know, that's a tricky one.
Yeah,
that's a tricky one. So, but the whole Jon Arryn is saying that, well, we need the Lannisters. You know what I mean? We can't... This is really not going to go well.
I think it's just more the fact that the Lannisters showed up at the last second.
Oh,
had the Lannisters rebelled and from the get-go, I think that they...
Yeah, that's been Ned's big thing, is that they waited to the last second to kind of jump in there and doesn't really know how to take them or which side they're truly on. They're out for themselves. Yeah. And so that's what kind of worries him, and to have someone protecting his friend who's a Lannister just doesn't sit well. So because that's a position that they can hold for life.
Yeah.
So I don't know. And it's an honor to hold it. I mean, Barristan Selmy later is like upset. He wanted to die, in the Kingsguard.
Yeah.
So, but
yeah. So, okay. So that was just kind of the vocab for the week, talking about Jaime. When Jon sees him, he's like, "Wow, this is what a king should look like."
Yep.
And
but then right after that is Tyrion. He sees the opposite.
Yeah, Tyrion Lannister, the youngest of Tywin's blood, by far the ugliest. All the gods had given to Jaime and Cersei. They had denied Tyrion. He was a dwarf, half his brother's height, struggling to keep pace on his stunted legs. Which I will find this. We'll get back to that line. I have something interesting about that. His head was too large for his body, with a brute squashed-in face beneath a sullen shelf of brow. One green eye and one black peered out from under. Then it talks about his hair, which was so blonde it seemed white, which is different than the hair color of Jaime and Cersei.
And you think, oh, it's such a little minute detail. No, it's not. It's not actually, and that's the thing, is that this is one of those things where I honestly kind of more and more I'm into the theory that they share the same mother, but they don't share the same father.
We'll get to that.
I'm just
we'll get to that. Yeah,
it's something for sure. So. And then you have and this is just everyone walking past. Jon is sitting there, having his wine with his buddies, having a good time, and Theon walks by and ignores him utterly.
Yeah.
Which
there's nothing new.
Nothing new to that.
Jon and Theon do not get along.
They don't get along. So, Benjen also walked by.
We'll get to Benjen
with Theon there. So
actually, I think that's really all we have left. The only other thing really left from this part is that Jon just gives Ghost a full chicken.
Right, yeah. And I just said, here that, Jon can do what he wants. He drinks, and he's able to bring Ghost, which the other kids weren't allowed to bring their direwolves. So he's able to bring his. Actually, maybe he wasn't allowed to, but no one's paying attention to him right now. So he's kind of doing his own thing on his own, which is cool. So, all right. Let's see. Are we into the next?
I think when Benjen.
Jon's insights.
Yeah.
So Jon's insights are our second third here, really. And what we're looking at is just Jon's attention to detail, things that he sees with Lady Stark, the Queen, his father. Just get to know Jon a little bit more and who he is here. So, So what are some of your first thoughts on that?
Well, we just we just get a lot from Jon. Obviously, we talked about how he just kind of noticed everything. And then really we get a lot when he's talking to Benjen, I think.
Yeah, we do. See if there had anything before that. I don't think I do, actually. No, they just kind of they kind of just describe Benjen as he walks in, his sharp features, blue-gray eyes, Yeah. That's about it, really. Yeah. So he starts to kind of talk about Ghost.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and how he's
direwolf.
Yeah, how he's different. That was my quote of the week I said earlier when he says that he's white. He's not like the other dire wolves.
Yeah.
And then Benjen starts talking about things beyond the wall, and this gets John a little excited.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, he's excited to talk to his Uncle Benjen about that because there's something he wants to kind of get into. But I thought first, though, he actually right after that, he says, "Don't you usually eat with your brothers?" Yeah. Don't you usually eat with your siblings? And he's sort of like, "Yeah, I do, but it would be an insult to the king and the queen to have a bastard up there, And so, and that was actually from Kat from Catelyn Tully Stark, and so she doesn't want him up there. She's the one who points that out, I think.
Yeah, Catelyn. Yeah, well, as we'll get into later chapters, Catelyn does not like John at all.
No, not at all. So, and then Benjen says, "I see." His uncle glanced over his shoulder at the raised table at the far end of the hall. "My brother does not seem very festive tonight." John had noticed that too. A bastard had to learn to notice things, to read the truth that people hid behind their eyes. His father was observing all of the courtesies, but there was a tightness in him that John had seldom seen before. And that's the kind of piece that stuck out to me, that, of all of his children, his bastard, air quote, would notice that about his father. And just anyone who's in the hall, he really, pays attention to detail and notices the minute, small things. And really, I guess, is in tune with more like your body language and what you're not communicating with your words, So I think that could help in, that does help him later, and we'll talk about that as we continue.
Yeah, well, it's something that comes up later with Tyrion, where Tyrion talks about like, well, because I'm a dwarf, like I can't wield a sword, I can't do this. I need to be smart with my mind. And so it's interesting. We'll get to it later when Tyrion and John have some conversations, and that's kind of where Tyrion tells him.
Yeah, absolutely. The next thing that John notices is that the queen is also mad. The queen is angry too. John told his uncle in a low, quiet voice, "Father took the king down to the crypts this afternoon. The queen didn't want him to go." Benjen gave John a careful, measuring look. "You don't miss much, do you, John? We could use a man like you on the wall."
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know if did Benjen mean to say that? I mean, does he? I mean, I think he knows that that
John actually wants to go.
That John wants to go, but that John may go one day. That maybe that's the plan. But then they get into this back and forth on, now's not the time. Not when you're 14. Go know a woman. Understand what you'd really be giving up before you make this, pledge to this brotherhood. So I think that's fair. Because we kind of get in the show sometimes, John saying, "Why didn't anyone tell me about this?" Or, that Tyrion, "You're the only one who really kind of, let me know that this was going to be, or really told me what this place, was and what it was going to be." So, thought that was kind of interesting. Let's see. Any more John's insights here? John just swells with pride. And he says, "Robb is stronger with a lance than I, but I'm the better sword." And Hullen says, "I sit a horse as well as anyone in the castle." So there's some notable achievements, that he's better with the sword and he sits horse really well. So, he's holding his own.
Yeah, I had just a conversation with one of our patrons, Lord Adam Parker. He's always like super communicative, which is awesome because he's always like sending us messages. "Oh, guys, this is what I think," which is sweet. I love it. Yeah, I love reading them. He's talking about how in the show, Benjen's conversation with John, he says it seems a little bit more like Benjen knows the truth of John's mother. You can't hold lands or hold titles. You don't know what you'd be giving up. Whereas in the book, he says you don't know what you'd be giving up until you bet a woman. Mm-hmm. So those are two kind of differences there, which is
that's a good point.
Which is interesting.
Yes, absolutely. Very interesting.
Do you think Benjen knows?
Yes.
Yeah.
Knows the truth?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I say that
Maybe
I'm 50-50 on that.
Is
Because
it possible that Ned, during this, when he finds out I'm going to go to the wall, Ned tells him, "Hey, like I want you to keep him safe up there."
yeah, I think all of this there might have been a conversation that we never got, because it seems like Ned wants to say more, and he kind of says, later on, like that he will explain things to Jon when he returns. But I think it was their safety in sending him to the wall, and that seems kind of crazy, but like I do think that's sort of the plan. Especially when you really think about who this is and what we're talking about here, without talking about it.
Yeah.
But someone, I feel like if you had to trust anyone, you would trust your brother.
Yeah.
Right. This is if this is their sister, their sister's son. If there's anyone he could have trust with it, it'd be, it'd be Benjen. So yeah. Although I mean, part of me thinks it's a promise. Yeah. And he didn't actually tell anybody.
Well, it's possible, but I will say
maybe he didn't tell him who he was, but sort of that there's more to this, Benjen, and Benjen can put this together. See, I don't think he has to break his promise to Lyanna. I think his brother can kind of figure out and read between the lines that okay, you came back with this boy from the Tower of Joy. I get it. Yeah. I get it.
Well, some interesting, I will say just very, very interesting, in this conversation, there is something. When Benjen's telling you you're a little too young to go, I think he says you're 14. And Jon says, Daeron Targaryen was only 14 when he conquered Dorne. Jon said the young dragon was one of his heroes.
Yeah. And
just throwing that out there.
Throwing it out there. So, Daeron Targaryen, also known as the Young Dragon, and this is someone who Jon, really kind of idolized and liked a lot. When we read the Dunk and Egg series, I think there's a mention of him in there a couple of times. So he's the eldest son of King Aegon III, and he's the 8th Targaryen to sit the Iron Throne. He ascended to the throne at the age of 14, and he's famous for conquering Dorne. I'm just getting this off of the wiki page. And basically, he only lives to be 18, which is said right here in this chapter, that he only lives to be 18. He, when he goes to conquer Dorne, he felt like that was some, basically that it was the kingdom that they couldn't conquer, that they needed to sort of settle this business with them.
Well, how old would Jon be when he first dies?
Is he 18? I don't know.
Probably. I mean, if he's 14 here, and then he dies at the end of A Feast for Crows when he gets stabbed. I mean, that's only a couple years.
Yeah, time is sometimes hard to it's
gauge
hard to,
in this.
Yeah, because you have to pay attention to when they say that it took like a month for the king to get from
but
King's
it can't be that much longer. Because I don't think the time difference between Game of Thrones to even A Dance with Dragons, Feast for Crows, if you kind of look at them as the same thing, it can't be more than 5 years.
No, but yeah, it's here's a little aside, something that it's I do like to pay attention to how writers move time around and how that happens, because for example in
Wheel of
Time it all takes
15
place 15 books in like 1 year. It's like, well, that did not happen in 1 year. You know what I mean?
Well, I guess, it just depends. I guess it'll just depend on how big the world is.
Yeah, exactly. So but yeah, so it's he goes down, he conquers Dorne, and loses a bunch of men, and so that was unfortunately the conquest didn't last. It was undone in a fortnight. So when a clever trap killed the steward that Daeron had left to rule Dorne, and so there's that whole bit. So but he actually for a little while there it was a good accomplishment. So.
Yeah. So anyway, the conversation keeps going. I just thought this part was funny, and he says, also, do you remember that Daeron died when he was 18, or have you forgotten that part? And Jon says, I forget nothing. I just think it's funny because I just put in my notes, he also knows nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Know nothing. I put the same thing in my margin.
You forget that.
Right.
And then later he's talking about some stuff. He's talking about how his brothers are going to have things. What place could a bastard hope to earn? Then this is really interesting here. Benjen says, you don't know what you're asking, Jon. The Night's Watch is a sworn brotherhood. We have no families. None of us will have their father's sons. Our wife is duty, and our mistress is honor. I just thought that family, duty, honor. Not that it has anything to do with perhaps Catelyn Stark or
Right.
that. I just saw that, and it just the way it looked on my page, I just have it circled.
Oh yeah. That is interesting. Yeah. And then Jon says, a bastard can have honor too, and he's missing the point, a little bit. But I'm ready to swear your oath, and he says you're a boy of 14, not a man yet. Until you have known a woman, you cannot understand what you would be giving up.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, is that true?
Yeah.
I mean, come on. It's anyone who has experienced a little bit more life than a 14-year-old would say the same thing. You don't understand what you're giving up here. If you have a chance to stay in Winterfell for a little longer, okay. But it seems like maybe things accelerated here to a point where, his father's leaving, and his father is the one who really looks out for him, and he feels comfortable, I think, and appreciated and safe when his father's there, and his father's leaving, and then it's going to be Robb is in control, but really it's, it's his stepmother, I guess, Catelyn Tully, and so, I think that sort of pushes him to say, okay, let's go.
Yep.
Time for me to head north, but we'll get there.
Yeah. Then Benjen says to Jon, Moore's pity put a hand on Jon's shoulder. Come back to me after you fathered a few bastards of your own, and we'll see how you feel.
Yeah, that didn't sit well.
Jon trembled.
Yeah.
I will never father a bastard, he said carefully. Never. He spat it out like venom.
Yeah. Yeah, because he knows. I mean, he knows, I guess, the hardship and sort of kind of like the Kingslayer has that name whispered behind his back. It's what they say openly to Jon often, that you're the bastard,
Mm-hmm.
and so he has to kind of deal with that. So there's really not much. I mean, he gets upset. He's been drinking too much wine, and he says he has to, he excuses himself and kind of, he's stumbling out into the night and things.
Yeah.
So
he starts to cry. It says Jon felt hot tears on his cheeks, which I found interesting in that there's a lot in these first couple chapters when it talks about it's burnt like ice, it does this, and it's always something to do with either hot or cold.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just have found that interesting. I went back and looked at when Daenerys gets out of the pool or out of the bath, it says she could feel the cold air brush across her, and it, just I don't know. I've just noticed that specifically Gur has written this type of a line into about every chapter.
Well, yeah, I mean, even right here when he steps out from the hall, it's warm, hot into the cold air sort of feel of going outside and things. Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, he does that a lot. Okay, so then as he steps out, he hears a voice call out to him. Boy, a voice called. And I thought this was really interesting. He turns back around, and over the ledge, above the door to the great hall, looking for all the world like a gargoyle, the dwarf grinned down at him. Is that animal a wolf? A dire wolf, Jon said. His name is Ghost. He stared up at the little man, his disappointment suddenly forgotten. What are you doing up there? Why aren't you at the feast? And so they have this little back and forth or whatever. And Tyrion's just kind of talking about, it's too loud. He's had too much wine. Not good to vomit on your brother.
Yeah.
Which I guess he's had some experience doing that.
Doesn't surprise me.
That doesn't surprise me at all. I love Tyrion. And so Jon's he's thinking about helping him down. Should I get a ladder?
This is where I was talking about where he talked about he noticed that he was walking across on his stunty little legs, but then here he
see what he does here. So he says, "Oh, bleed that," the little man said. He pushed himself off the ledge into the empty air. Jon gasped, then watched with awe as Tyrion Lannister spun around in a tight ball, landed lightly on his hands, then vaulted backward onto his legs. Mm-hmm. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Why didn't Peter Dinklage do this on the show?
Well, yeah, but also did that really happen? I was like, what? Is that just is he that acrobatic? That was.
I found this line interesting. I was just like, I don't know, maybe we don't see more of that kind of stuff in the.
Yeah, we don't really, and so it's kind of like
maybe this might have
changed course on this.
Yeah, he did.
Which is fine, but I don't know. There's some acrobats there. There's something going. I mean, maybe he was thinking he'd have to go join the circus like the other dwarves that we see later on. They're always jumping around doing cartwheels.
I don't know. I just found it interesting.
Yeah. And they have a really good back and forth conversation, basically talking about what it means to be a bastard, what it means to be a dwarf, and Tyrion gets to kind of pet Ghost.
Yeah,
Ghost is really Jon has real good command over Ghost. which is good to see that these kids have trained their dire wolves so they're not ripping people's faces and throats out at random.
So every week I have another crazy highlight thing where so 14,000 people have highlighted this specific line. This is when when Tyrion is giving Jon some counsel. Never forget what you are, for surely the world will not. Make it your strength, then it can never be your weakness. Armor yourself in it, and it will never be used to hurt you. This is where Tyrion's saying, hey, it's okay to be a bastard. Just use it to your advantage.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and they sort of... I thought in the show they did a good job, too, kind of making this connection between... a bastard and a dwarf, and what what that means really. So I thought that was good. He also mentions too, Lannister studied his face. Yes, he said, and I can see it. You have more of the North in you than your brothers. Yeah, and that actually made Jon feel really good. To feel like, okay, I look like a Northernman, and I look like I belong here. You know, so you can only imagine what he's thinking. Was my mother? Who is she? Was she a Northerner? Or was she not? Yeah. And I think just to know that he got his father's blood makes him feel good, but perhaps his mother he has no idea. He has no idea. So it makes him feel good to hear that. Yeah.
And then I have a couple things here. It goes on to all dwarfs are bastards in their father's eyes. And then Jon saying, you are your mother's trueborn son of Lannister. Tyrion says, am I?
Yeah.
Cue the X-Files music to add a little bit more to the is Tyrion a Targaryen line. Then he's like, tell my his mother died in childbirth. I didn't even know who my mother was, Jon says. Yeah. So that is interesting. Those lines are backed up. Back to back.
Yeah, it just shows apparently they share these things. Yeah. These are things that they can kind of bond over, and there's a closeness there.
Yeah, so. And then a line here, the way this chapter ends, and also our patron, Lord Adam Parker, says, and with that he turned and staunted back into the feast, whistling a tune. He opened the door, and light shadow crossed the clear of the yard, and for a moment Tyrion Lannister stood as tall as a king. So a comment here says, when you open the door, it just says that line, this is not a throwaway line. Does Gur say this because Tyrion will one day be a king, or one day he'll be as tall as a king, he will be hand to a king?
Yeah.
Yes. First and foremost, guys, love when you guys send us comments.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, please send us more.
Please send us more, because then
incorporate them in the notes.
Yeah, absolutely.
It gives us more to talk about, which is great. So yeah, there is that bit that really kind of stands out, that he becomes hand of the king and hand of the queen. Yeah. So I mean, he is definitely an influential person, and he's I think he's one of Gur's favorite characters, and he's one of mine too. Yeah. So So that's the end of the chapter. I mean, some good stuff in there. We tried to pull as much as we could out. There's other little tidbits here and there, but overall, it's just Jon being insightful. Us learning more about the Lannisters, getting a good little introduction to Tyrion and Jon's relationship, which this first meeting will, the first impression that Tyrion gives Jon, I think sticks with him, and they're going to continue to have conversations later on, and all of those, can really serve you later on in life. Yeah, leaving a type of impression like Tyrion has left with Jon is a good thing. Yeah. So. All right, I think that's it for the chapter. Do we have any cool connections left, or?
No, I will say real quick, Adam Parker also sent us he says there's a theory I don't like, that he's talking about this chapter, that Ned sent Jon to the wall to protect him from the truth. He says this chapter kind of pokes holes in that. So just kind of quickly as on that, do you think...
Wait, say that again?
That Ned sent Jon to the wall to protect him from the truth, like to kind of hide him away.
Protect him from the truth... or to protect Jon from learning the truth, or others figuring out?
Others figuring it out.
Yeah. Why? So he thinks this pokes holes in it.
Yeah. He thinks that maybe Ned was never... I guess I'm saying Ned wasn't going to do that, and Ned just... Because Jon asked to go to the wall, he sends him. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that Ned didn't specifically say, I'm going to send him to the wall to hide him.
No, I don't think Ned would have ever actually forced... his son to go to the wall. No. But I do think it was one of the options that they might have considered.
Oh, I do.
Yeah,
I think Ned Ned claims him as his own son to protect him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I don't think he needed to send him to the wall to then protect him further.
Right, no. But I do kind of wonder, when did Benjen go to the wall? I kind of wondered if it was like, if there's a connection between. I don't think there is. I think it's a stretch to think that Benjen went to the wall after he, had learned about Jon. Maybe if he did, I don't think he did. So I think Jon just decides to go, and Ned lets him go, but is maybe happy and that he is going, and might even say indirectly to his brother, this is a good thing. We need to watch out for him. There's more to this story. I can't say anything now. The time's not right. And again, he's protecting his life. Yeah. He truly believed that, and so did Lyanna, that Robert Baratheon would kill any Targaryen offspring.
Yeah.
Which I don't know, man. I get that. It would be Rhaegar's son, and that would really irritate him. But it's also like, this boy is a Stark too, and so I feel like I don't know. I don't really know how Robert would have reacted. I don't know that he would have killed. It would have set him directly against his good friend. Ned Stark.
I don't know though. I thought about, actually I was thinking about that this week, and I don't know, because Robert kind of goes off the hinge later when he says, "No, we're going to kill this Daenerys Targaryen."
Right, but he says later that Ned's
idea.
right.
Yeah,
he's like, "You're right. She's just what."
Because I think had he known from the get go, this is Robert and Lyanna's son, I think he would have killed him right then and there. But once he's kind of grown, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe not. And then also, I don't know. It's tough to tell, because who would have rallied behind him? Is there?
Well, I don't even.
Also, isn't it better that Jon is raised a bastard? Yeah. It's one of those things. It's almost like, I hate to even throw out a Harry Potter reference here, but Dumbledore believed that having Harry raised in the Muggle world would make his head less big. He's not going to be thinking he's this badass chosen one.
Well, I mean, maybe, but the thing is Ned probably didn't know that. There's this prophecy and all this other stuff.
Just that he would be the heir to the throne.
Yeah,
because that he would have been the heir to the throne.
Yeah,
he has more of a claim than because it's the
right
son of the.
He would have more of a claim than Daenerys.
Yeah, and Viserys and everybody.
Yeah.
Growing up, so growing up, he would have had that claim, and it's like,
right,
what do? Because he can, and I get why they did it, because it directly, people would then say, how can Robert Baratheon rule when the true born heir is up in the north? You know what I mean? Yeah,
it
wouldn't have worked, sort of thing.
But I think people say that, but once you've usurped the way I look at it is, once if you take out the king and you just defeat their armies, you're now king.
You're king.
Yeah. So that's why I keep saying that Stannis is the legit true heir to the throne, because once Robert dies, Joffrey's not an actual heir.
Yeah,
Stannis is the legit king.
You have to usurp. You have to take it back.
Yeah.
For that line to continue. The line is stopped.
Yeah.
But it's two different.
But Jon has a claim.
He does have a claim, but it is that mentality that.
Well, I mean,
there's
look what it
two
does
lines
to
of
Viserys.
thoughts. Yeah, two lines of thoughts that you could take on it. So.
I gotcha. Yeah,
but they're just good friends, and I'm not so sure that that Robert would have seen it like that way. I think they could have both protected him in some way, and maybe even jointly, especially if they could have shown Robert that Cersei's, being unfaithful, and that he has all these, I don't know, inbred kid, air quote kids that cannot, continue his line. Then it's like, okay, well, yeah, it's Jon's. Let's give it to Jon.
Yep.
I mean,
yep.
it's a good thought there, Adam. Appreciate it.
Yeah.